Hey there, so glad you could join me for this episode of Navigate. I'm your host, Tim Austin, and as we transition into the summer months, I'm thinking about those opportunities, those unique opportunities for big moments. I think of the break from routine, vacations, time with family and friends, and it all comes with opportunities to experience those big moments that don't present themselves every day. And of course, there are also those hard big moments as well. And so I think it's appropriate to be having a conversation with my guest today, someone who not only recognizes the value, the growth potential in life's big moments, she's taken it a step further to come alongside others in their moments and does this for a living. Sonja Wallenbeck helps Christian moms with the tools to thrive in life's big moments instead of just survive. She's helping mothers look back at milestone moments to see joy in the journey and fulfillment in the memories. As a certified real-life process facilitator and certified iEnneagram practitioner, Sonja's hope is for women to be able to walk confidently and successfully through their big moments while learning more about themselves and how they should navigate these moments well. Sonja's been married for over 28 years, has 3 grown daughters, and as you can imagine, has walked through a lot of these moments herself. Sonja believes that every mom deserves to have a cheerleader walking alongside them during the most bittersweet milestones of life. So once again, I'm your host of Navigate. This is Tim Austin, and I'm also a coach at Encompass Life Coaching. You can check that out at encompasslifecoaching.com and see and learn about the services I offer. But let's just dive into this conversation. Thanks for joining me. Let's have a chat with my guest, Sonja Wallenbeck. Welcome to the podcast, Sonja, and it's really good to have you join me today. I've been looking forward to this conversation with you and excited.
I'm glad to be here, Tim. I truly am excited to talk to your audience about the things that I'm just working on in my life and hopefully helping other women to do also.
Yeah. And I know about some of those things being part of the Real Life Process Network of facilitators that you and I are both part of. And so I'm excited for our listeners to get to know you today and to hear a bit of your story and what you do and how they can connect with you. So let's just dive in. And for that, I'd just love for you to give an introduction of who you are and what you do. And share your story with us a little bit.
All right. Well, my name is Sonja Wallenbeck, and I have been a Wallenbeck now for almost 29 years. In a couple of weeks, our 29th anniversary is coming up. I am a mom of 3 adult married daughters. Our last one just got married in November. She also just graduated from college this last weekend, which was very exciting. So
exciting. Yeah,
it was exciting. It was exciting for all of our family to be together because we live in different places. So the grandbabies were there. I'm also a grandma of 2 with 1 on the way. We just found out she's having her 3rd. So we're super excited about that.
So you're empty nesters or?
We are empty nesters, and we have 3 adult daughters. 1 lives in Tennessee. That's, we're actually moving there in the next couple of months from Michigan here, to be near the grandbabies. So, that's our big transition that's coming up in the next 2 months here, is to be moving from our hometown of Michigan. The girls all grew up here at a Christian school. We are very involved in that. I got saved when I was just a youngster and have been in church my whole life. Got saved, but kind of rededicated myself at around age 14, 15, when I started making my faith my own, right? And I say that's a journey from then until still, right? Even over the last 5 years, I've learned so much more about myself and about who Christ is for me and how I am his servant. And that's how Big Moment Mentor came into play. We truly are just a space for Christian moms that are kind of, you use the word transitioning. So we're transitioning kind of that late high school stage all the way through the married adult stage. And over the years, when my oldest daughter was getting ready for that first big thing was her wedding. That same year, my middle daughter was graduating from high school and my youngest was turning 16. Yeah, this was a huge year for me personally. And I knew that it had to be different than just trying to live life, right? We had to really focus on things that year. And within that, I realized I really wanted somebody to mentor me through this. I needed someone who had gone through some of these things ahead of me. So I started the search at the beginning of the year. I knew I had wanted to make these events special for my daughter. And I went to our church and I asked and got a name. And unfortunately, that person just kind of gave me the runaround a little bit, said yes, and then didn't get back with me. And I didn't have enough time to pursue it. Right. So I said, okay, God, we are going to do this year together. You and me. I don't have more time to look for someone else. I've just got to do this. Right. So I really plugged into trying to make each of those events special for each daughter. And it happened. God and I, we did a great job that year. They enjoyed it. But I realized at the end of that year that I basically survived the year and I didn't thrive. I went through all of the events and I was present, but not really emotionally speaking. And I was there physically. I was getting the job done and probably not in the nicest way. What I've learned about my personality, right? I'm a take charge kind of gal and I get things done. And not always at that time, I didn't realize that I was kind of, bowling through everything. So I got to the end of that year, that next January, because my daughter got married in December. We'd had the graduation, 16, all of that kind of stuff. And I was a mess. And I really went into kind of a depression of just realizing that I hadn't dealt with any of the emotions that go through all of that. My daughter, who got married, also moved to Tennessee, which is 10 hours away. And that New Year's Eve, we drove away, leaving her in that apartment with that guy. Right. And I knew this was final. And I knew that, that part of life is changing. And we got through the end of all of that. And my husband said, what you really needed was someone like you to help you get through those things. He goes, you know what? You need to help other women do it better than what you did. So that's how the idea of Big Moment Mentor came about. But I'll tell you, there's been a journey since then because I wasn't ready. God knew that. I wasn't in a good place to actually help women through those things other than just I could give you to-do lists and I could give you, the plan on how to get through those things well, but not well spiritually, emotionally, mentally, right? And around that time is when I started learning more about myself through real life process with Teresa. And it started with one tool, but has led to several other tools that I use in my practice. We talk about the centers of intelligence a lot in my practice of what is my heart saying? What is my head saying? What is my gut saying? Because I've learned that I'm a gut person, which means I shoot from the gut, which is why I ran over everybody because I was in control. I was going to get the things done and realizing I needed to stop a minute and really think about those around me and what I really wanted for myself as well as my daughters. And I needed to speak from my heart and really let people see what was inside. And so using those tools, that one is a big one. Another one is I'm sure in other podcasts you've talked about the needs and values. Yes. Oh, that was huge, huge tool that we use.
So you use the an Enneagram assessment, the harmony model that was introduced to us through the real life process, and also a needs and values assessment as well as tools to come alongside the folks that you're working with, your clients.
Exactly. Because that is what really God used in my life to bring about a huge change for me. everyone in my family will tell you that there's been a huge, God has done a huge work in me just over the last 3 years. And even in the last 2 specifically, is where God has used those specific tools to show me who I truly am in Him and how I can really help other women learn to thrive through big moments in their lives instead of just survive. Because all I did that year was survive. And there's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I hear that story, in different ways being told to me again and again around how hard it can be to find a mentor, to find someone who will give time and their experience and their support and just really come alongside us in these moments. So having someone like that is such a gift, whether that we call them a coach or a mentor or a counselor, but you're in that space that is so important. And big moments remind me, as I work with a lot of folks in transition. I mean, transition in general, is one thing, but within a transition can be layers or multiple big moments, and how to process all of that and to work through it, and not in an isolated, way where you're just kind of pushing through, which oftentimes we want to do, just push through it, get to the other side of this, and not thrive, like you said, or not really experience in the moment, and take advantage of the growth opportunities in those moments as well. So I love what you're doing. Tell me about other than that moment where kind of this seed was planted with your husband, and you got this idea. What were some other big pivotal moments that were instrumental in getting you to where you are now?
When we think of big moments, a lot of times people think of the happy moments, right? That are big. But I like to point out to people that that's not always true. What might be a big moment for me might be something really, really difficult and hard, like that moment when I left my oldest in that apartment, was a big moment for me, understanding that my life was changing and I needed to walk forward well with her. And I needed to learn how to I needed to parent an adult. Like, I have no idea how to do this well. Right. I didn't know. That was one of the moments that I realized. And there's been several moments like that of just, they're not always happy ones. Of course there is. Yeah. There's the graduations, the weddings, the baby showers, all of those things. But I'm also walking through with others that their children have walked away from the Lord. That's a huge, heavy moment, but you can still do that well. And I want to show other women that you can walk through those hard times well.
Well, I think I love what you're saying, because we need people with us on the journey to celebrate the wins and the victories and the great moments that we can celebrate, but also the grief that comes through loss and those kinds of moments. So both are important, and to have someone supporting us and walking with us through those moments is so important. So you mentioned that those big moments don't have to be big for everyone. They just have to loom large for you. So unpack that a little bit more for me. Let's say someone approaches you and you have a conversation with them about what they're experiencing in their lives, the season they're in, and how do you discern? How do you help them decide if this relationship is a good fit? Because mentoring relationships they have to be God ordained in a sense, right? They just have to be a good fit for people, relationally, and maybe even kind of the season of life you're in. So what are some ways that you help them navigate those decisions?
Well, really just it is a lot of conversation first. And it's also determining, are they willing to want to improve, want to get better, right? Like want to do the things, the hard work. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to understand myself and realize that I have faults, but to work through those together and understand that there's another side to it. I really want to know that they want to move forward and not stay stuck. Or right. A lot of times when someone comes to me and it's a good big moment. Yeah, definitely. But if it's a hard big moment, some people just want to sit in it, and I'll sit in it for a minute with you. But then I want to move forward. I want to help you move forward. I want you to see that God has intended us to move through those things in order to learn and to help others. Ultimately, that's what I want to do. So sitting in it, talking about, I really want to know where you're coming from. What is that? Maybe you're sitting really hard in your heart space, and I want to move you into what is your head saying. Now let's take some action and use our guts and let's move forward in that. Or maybe I'm holding you back a little bit and saying, okay, your gut's moving, but we got to take a minute. We need to explore these feelings, because some people don't like to explore the feelings. And so I want to sit in that with them a little bit and then get them to move forward. We teach a lot about, we also have a tool that we've developed a little bit. I'm sure others heard about. It's called SNAP. And it's about stopping in a moment. You can do this in, like the now session a little bit that we do with Real Life Process, is to stop and to think, notice what's going on in all of those places in our bodies, and ask ourselves, is there any truth to the lies that I'm hearing in my head, or is there truth mixed in there? What can I do to come back at this in a better, more responsive way instead of a reactive way? So I teach them about SNAP. I try to get them to see that they can pivot. All of us can pivot. We can turn around 180. We can do that in just a moment. If I just take a check, if I stop, I literally can snap my fingers physically, even if I need to, right? And just do that and say, hold on, I'm starting to react instead of respond. Is there a better way to do this? So if people are willing to do those things as I'm talking to them through conversation, then we're going to work together, and it's going to, it's going to be good.
Yeah. So they have to have a desire to move forward, even if there's some initial time of processing the difficult, the hard, the grief, the loss, whatever's there. But they have to have a desire to grow, to move forward. And I hear you talking a lot about just self-awareness too. That's a growth journey of becoming more self-aware. And these tools you're talking about just help the people you work with gain that more self-awareness. And then with that, we grow into, as followers of Christ, we can better, grow into our relationship with God, because we know who we are. We know, and He begins to tell us who we are as well. And
exactly,
and it's a kind of a dance there. But would I be correct in saying most of the clients you work with are moms in some season of transition?
My avatar, my best, my best client would be those moms that are going into like a senior year of high school, all the way through adult children in that season of just walking through those things. You were saying about how self-awareness, us moms need self-awareness that we're not Superwoman, that we don't have the red cape all the time. Yes, we are. We can move forward like a Superwoman, but truly our strength comes from Christ. But we have to understand ourselves in order to really fully grasp how He helps us each personally.
What would you say to, I'm thinking, I can't help but think of someone out there listening who's struggling with a big moment. We always go to our avatar or our audience as well. So I'm thinking about those who may be listening to Navigate podcasts. A lot of them, I work a lot with ministry leaders, cross-cultural workers. So they're expats living overseas. There's a lot of families in that space struggling right now with all the transition, what would you encourage them to do as a kind of a first step?
As a first step, I would really, truly invite them to get out of isolation, whether that's a one-on-one mentoring coaching or whether that's a community. That's something that Big Moment Mentor has done for moms of that stage of life too, is we've opened up a community to be able to talk with other women that are going through similar things or are going to or have been. So women of all ages, from that high schooler all the way to grown children my age. We have a couple women in there that have married children and grandchildren and such. But to get out of isolation, God doesn't want us in isolation. He's built community. And that is your first step, is to reach out to someone, whether even if it's a friend that's going through the stage of life, and go, hey, we need to be talking about this and praying about this together. And then I would say, if it's in a community, whether it's a mentor or whatever, is to really dig deep into who you are as a person and how has God made you? Thinking about the things of like, how do I react under stress? Or, how do I react when bad things come or happy things come even? Like what is my first response to do that? How can I start to really thrive instead of just survive this life stage?
Yeah. And so you offer both aspects you offer the community piece. And if someone desires one-on-one mentoring coaching, you offer that as well. So there's both of those opportunities are there. Yeah. Okay. You're a business owner with a ministry mindset. I can tell, We've known each other long enough. I know that. But so talk about transitioning into an entrepreneurial mindset and approach. That doesn't always come easy.
It's not.
It doesn't come easy for most of us. There's a shift, and especially when we've been, we are very ministry focused, and we just want to serve. We want to meet needs, and yet to have a viable business and to think through that and to strategically work on that. So, what are some things? What are some challenges you've had to face? Do you have any specific seasons that have really, how did your past experience in life prepare you for this?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a personal story here of the time that, so about 5 years ago, it might be 6 now, who knows, we're getting older, it goes fast. My husband joined a mastermind, and a lot of times people go, what is a mastermind? Right. And it's kind of like a group, like Real Life Process is a mastermind where you get together with other people and you help each other towards growth. Right. And at that time, when he did this, it's a group of men, and I'm going, you're just paying for friends. Like, I didn't understand this. Like, he was so excited, and he'd get off these calls and he'd be like charged on all this stuff. Right. And he was changing and growing. And I'm like, when I said those statements, I really think I was jealous because I felt as a mom, this was in the thicks of, high school with 3 girls and all of that. I didn't understand what was going on, and I was left behind. Right. And didn't understand the languages he was using. And why do I want to write goals down? And why do I want to, why do I want to keep track of my time? And so we got through the end of, we're starting that transition into empty nesting. So we had one married, we had another graduate, and then we had the third one, coming up and all that kind of stuff. And one day I got a phone call. It was my husband, but it was also someone else on the line. And he had found a woman's mastermind. And he basically said, hey, Sonja, this is Michelle. Michelle, this is my wife. See y'all later. And he hung up the phone. This is before Real Life Process had their actual weekly calls and things like that. And I'm telling you, I was in isolation, and my husband knew this. And to go from, it was funny because I had to pay for it. Right. But I showed up every week because I had investment into it. Yeah. I was determined to learn something. Right. And to contribute. Those were the 3 things, right? I needed to show up, get something, and contribute. All those three things. And since then, I've been in several others, plus Real Life Process, which I don't know what I would do without this, amazing community around me to grow my business and to be able to get out there more and share what God is doing in my life. But I struggle. I struggle with that point of, where is it ministry? Where is it? But I keep reminding myself, I would have never done this if I hadn't paid for it. I wouldn't show up. I wouldn't be as committed. I wouldn't have learned, and I wouldn't have wanted to give back, but I do, because that's part of the back and forth, is to be able to contribute. And so I think that answers your question a bit of where my mindset had to shift, where I'm not paying for friends. I'm paying for the opportunity to show up, right? To learn and then to contribute.
That's good. That's good. So how have you struggled? Have you struggled with the transition to fully living out your message? Because we embody that as coaches, as mentors, in our work, we embody the message that, and so as you've shared your story, you've lived it out. But how do you what's some of that tension there of fully living out your message, telling your story, getting vulnerable, and providing space and opportunities for others to do the same?
There's a couple incidences that come to mind right away. I was just grinning when you were asking that question, because I was working with a coach, Mark Ross, during the time that my daughter announced that she was moving her wedding into the middle of her senior year instead of after her senior year. And I was starting to get kind of crazy. I was going back into that old self of going to survive. Okay, we have 3 months instead of 9, right? Like, we have to get this undone. And Mark asked me a very specific question. He goes, "What are you going to tell your clients at the end of this experience?" Oh, yes. Right. Deep breath, slow down, take a breath, right? Talk to your daughter. You know her personality. We've done this, is extensive in our family. I knew she wanted to be in charge, and I knew I was going to play a support role this time instead of being in charge, where my other daughters had kind of wanted mom, right, to take things over. I needed to take a step back and ask questions. And so I had to apply a lot of my what I teach others. And it's not easy when things have to be done, but I had to do that so that I could at the end then tell you that moment on the dance floor when my other daughter comes up and goes, "Mom," I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "You've been out here the most of anybody." I'm like, and I hadn't even noticed, but it was so joyful and so much freedom that night, because I had no qualms. We didn't argue. We didn't have that big mother-daughter blow up that I had with the other two. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so that one sticks out in my mind as recent.
Yeah. And that's where you want to be. That's the place you want to be able to tell your clients, this is what is possible. Exactly. This is how you can thrive. And so, it's a good feeling when you can do that. It's not always the case. We have the, like you say, the big moments that are hard and that we haven't shined fully in those moments.
There's been a few.
And yet those two are learning and often teachable moments for sure. So, yeah. Well, going back to transition seasons require a lot of courage to embrace and engage with the new that God has for us. How would you encourage someone out there? They're listening, they're struggling in their transition with the next steps. Maybe God has given them a message and a ministry or a vision for their business or their ministry, but they struggle to show up, give it language, and really take the next steps. How would you encourage someone there in that place?
I will tell you that my story is not an easy story, and it's been eye-opening and encouraging to see once you are obedient, when God says to do something, it's obedience. And to put it out there and to encourage. You do not know who's going to be affected by it. If it's just one person that understands God's love for them and he has a purpose for their heart, he has a purpose for the hurt, he has the purpose for the good. All of those things are in order to help others along the journey. They're for, I would so encourage you to, whether it's to write it, to get it out on a podcast, to do videos, to do, just to journal, to write notes to folks that are going through something different or the same thing that you are. We're never not going to be in transition, I don't think. Right. I think that's a point that you could very much make. We're in the transition of leaving our home of, we've been here since 2004 and we're moving across, we're going, you just did this yourselves, yes. And the moving of different things, but we're being obedient to what God said. And though it's hard and we're leaving family behind but we're walking forward in faith. And when we do that, God just uses it. He really, truly does. And if you can grasp onto the fact that there is purpose in the past, there's purpose in the hurt, there is purpose in the trauma, there is purpose in the story, there is purpose in whatever moment you're going through. I know for myself that has given me the faith to move forward.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And there's purpose and meaning in the past and in the present and in these moments. And what I come back to is we often need someone to help us draw out that mm-hmm. meaning and that purpose. Because like you said, in isolation, we can push through, but we miss those moments, don't we? We can mm-hmm. easily forget. And so we need those questions to help us clarify what's the purpose here, what's the meaning, how can I process this in a way that's going to move me forward and help me to grow and help me to get to the other side and really celebrate some of this hard transition, good or hard, So I love what you're saying. I love what you're doing, Sonja. And tell us before we get ready to sign off here, tell us how our listeners can get in touch with you, can connect with you. What might they be able to find when they do connect mm-hmm. with you, discover? Yeah.
Yes. A couple different ways. You can go to www.bigmomentmentor.com. Very simple. And that will tell you all about us. If there's a way to join the community, there's a way to work with me personally there. Also, if you go to bigmomentmentor.com/victory, that's that we have a free download for you about that snap tool that I talked about. We put scripture along each side of the steps, and it just shows you how to take a moment to be able to pivot from when you're reacting and not responding well in what God has, put before you. And so that's one of those tools. We're also on Instagram and Facebook under Big Moment Mentor. We'd love to, be able to just have a conversation and see if we can be of service and ministry for you in any transition that you are in life. We would love more in our community. We want women to be out of isolation and to be really growing together.
Yeah. And for what I understand, this is a family affair, right? Doesn't one of your daughters work with you?
Yes. My middle daughter, she is cool. She is my manager. She keeps me going. She's also we have a podcast. That's the other thing. Oops. Nice. We have Moments Matter podcast, and she's my co-host. And if you go there are conversations between mom and daughter about all these transitions. So we talk about weddings and graduations and hard stuff and all the good stuff. And if you really want to hear my story too, first 2 episodes go deeply into my testimony of my God story and how God's using that.
Great. And I will put all that and those links in the show notes for people who want to connect with you. And I will encourage them to do that because I think just what you're doing is amazing and so needed. And so looking forward to what God has for you and your work and your ministry. down the road. Sonja, thanks so much for being with me today. And I would just like to ask if you could just pray as we wrap up our time here. Just say a prayer for our listeners out there. And we all know that we various struggles and challenges out there. So just if you would, love for you to pray as we sign off here.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just praise you for who you are. I thank you for your love and your kindness, and Lord, for the things and the tools and the people and just your word that shows us how much you love us and how much you care for us. And Lord, I pray for our listeners right now, those that are going through some transitions that are difficult. And Lord, I pray that they will reach out, that they will really understand that you have made community for a reason, and that is to help us each get through and to be able to really thrive in our Christian walks, Lord. And we're meant to do that together and to help each other. Thank you, Lord, for this time. Thank you for Tim and for his ministry, Lord. I pray that you just put your hand of blessing upon it. And thank you once again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sonja. Look forward to more conversations down the road. Thanks for being with me today. Well, there it is. Another inspiring guest and another insightful conversation here on Navigate. I hope you enjoyed my time with Sonja, and I encourage you to reach out to her and learn more about what she offers. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Navigate. I've been your host, Tim Austin, helping you take some of the guesswork out of transition through these conversations. And if you like what you've heard, take a moment to give us a review and to share this episode with a friend. Combining a season of coaching into your transition journey can be a great way to move forward with greater confidence and clarity. Schedule a conversation with me at EncompassLifeCoaching.com to learn more about the coaching services I offer. That's it for now. I'll catch you next time.